Most medieval castles were designed for war, for siege, for dominance. This one wasn't. There are no towers designed to withstand armies, no dramatic hilltop dominance. Yet nearly 1,000 years ago, this quiet ruin held real power, not because of who lived here, but because of who passed through.
Eynsford Castle doesn't look important at first glance. It's compact, enclosed, almost modest. But castles like this weren't built to intimidate from a distance. They were built to intervene, quietly, in everyday life. To understand why, you have to go back to the moment England changed forever. After 1066, England didn't just gain a new king, it gained a new system. The Norman Conquest replaced loose Anglo-Saxon rule with something far more controlled. Lands were mapped, populations were recorded, obligations were enforced. Castles were no longer just military structures, they became tools of administration.
Einford was established in the late 11th century, at a time when Norman authority was still fragile and far from secure. And this spot mattered, because the River Darent wasn't scenery, it was infrastructure.
Eynsford Castle was built by William de Eynsford, a Norman landholder granted control of this area in the years following the conquest. This wasn't a royal fortress commissioned by the crown. It was a private castle designed to establish local authority rather than project national power. Construction likely began sometime in the 1080s, but not as a single, unified project. Castles like this were built gradually, expanding as wealth, labor, and political confidence allowed.
Early structures were timber, practical and quick to raise. Stone came later, once control had been secured and permanence became the priority. What survives today reflects decades of incremental work, rather than a single moment of ambition. The workforce behind Eynsford was relatively small. At any given time, perhaps 50 to 100 people would have been involved.
Most of that labour came from the surrounding villages. Local people were required to work here as part of their obligation, while skilled masons and carpenters were brought in when specialist knowledge was needed.
Stone was quarried nearby, timber was cut locally, everything was moved by hand, cart or river. Without machinery, progress was slow. Construction didn't take years, it unfolded over decades, often spanning an entire generation. What's important is that the castle didn't need to be finished to be effective. Its authority existed from the moment work began.
If you needed to move between London and the Kent countryside, the chances are you crossed here. Goods, livestock, messengers, this was a bottleneck, and bottlenecks are where power concentrates.
Unlike royal castles, Eynsford didn't belong to a king, it belonged to the Archbishop of Canterbury. That distinction matters. In medieval England, the church wasn't only a spiritual authority, it was an economic one. Church officials owned land, held courts, and collected rents. This castle didn't need soldiers lining the walls. Its presence was enough. Anyone passing through understood that. Movement was being observed, recorded, and judged. Decisions were made here. Obligations were enforced here. Power at Eynsford wasn't shouted, it was assumed.
But power depends on relevance, and relevance doesn't last forever. By the 14th century, Eynsford Castle was already becoming obsolete.
Trade routes shifted. Political control became more centralized. Administrative systems evolved. And then came the moment that sealed the castle's fate. During a dispute over inheritance, the castle was deliberately attacked and damaged. Buildings were broken into. Property was destroyed, not as part of a war, but as the result of a private conflict. What's striking is not that the castle was damaged, it's that it was never properly repaired.
No authority stepped in. No effort was made to restore it. By that point, the role had already faded. The castle didn't fall in battle, it was abandoned. Stone was removed and reused elsewhere. Timber was taken. What remained slowly collapsed back into the landscape.
And then something rare happened. Instead of erasing the past, the village grew around it. Homes appeared beside the ruins. Paths followed old defensive lines. Daily life replaced authority.
The castle didn't vanish, it was absorbed. What once monitored movement now sits quietly beside it. The same road still runs through here, but no one is counting anymore. Eynsford Castle reminds us that history isn't always dramatic. Sometimes power looks like stone walls beside a river, sometimes control feels invisible, and sometimes the greatest change happens when no one is watching at all. If you made it to the end of this video, don't forget to subscribe, because I'll be seeing you again very soon.